Today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest home shopping mistakes that home buyers make. Yes. So look, this isn't about getting pre-approved, which you better have already done. That's right. I'm pointing and I'm saying you want to do that first. You've got a real estate agent you've researched. Okay, we are home shopping now. We're going to open houses. You're going out and you're looking at multiple houses. What is the number one mistake I see? People are not paying attention. That's right. And look, I have done that too. I've bought multiple houses over the years and I've made this same mistake. And today we're going to talk about how to avoid making this mistake and what you can do proactively so that ultimately you're happier in the house that you buy, you're financially prepared for the house that you buy, and you avoid the houses that will bankrupt you. So if you're new to the channel, if you're not, say it with me. I'm a mortgage lender licensed in 48 states. My team's one of the top purchase teams in America. What that means is that we work with hundreds and hundreds of buyers every single year, get them into houses, but we're also looking at the properties that they're buying. And down the road, you know, I'm the person where they call and they go, Jen, I need a different house. So let's talk about how we can avoid that. Here's the thing. If you go to an open house, you're probably gonna spend 5, maybe 15 minutes tops, right? Back in the day, I actually used to go to open houses with realtors and I'd sit there with my little flyers. Would you like a brownie? And here's my flyer. And I can tell you right now, if you spent 45 minutes in the house, we either thought you were stealing or you were gonna murder us. It was one or the other because it was so uncommon, and it's still uncommon. You know, I think we're all trained to, it's someone else's home, right? If it's new construction, that's different. But if it's someone else's home, like, you don't want to be like in there forever. It's their space. Like, you can feel really kind of like, okay, yeah, I like this room, get out. That's nice, get out. You know, because there is a feeling that you really shouldn't be lingering there. Okay. And look, if you're a person where you're like, Jen, I'll spend 45 minutes in every room. Awesome. Great. That's wonderful. But the bulk of people, you go through a house, you start outside and you're like, do I like it? Is it pretty? Right? Does it have curb appeal? Is this what I want people to, you know, if someone drives up in my driveway, am I going to be proud? And then you go in and you look at the rooms and the floor plan and you're out, right? And then you're supposed to be making a decision. There's 2 things I would do before you even get in a car, okay? You already got pre-approved, you already have a real estate agent. What are the 2 things? Number 1, you are going to go through the pictures of that house like a stalker, okay? And I say like a stalker, like FBI, like the CIA, like a private investigator. You are gonna go through those pictures with a microscope. The analogy that I think is the best, ladies, tell me if you can relate. You're gonna go through those pictures like it's your ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. Oh yeah, that's right. We're gonna go through in detail. That's right. Yes, we are. Or guys, gals, the person that you're in love with, you're gonna look at the pictures. You are. Let's do that with the house. So the first thing is, like, if I'm on the phone with a client, I'll be like, hey, like, do you have any houses you're looking at? And a lot of times they're like, why are you asking me this? And I'm like, I just want to go through the pictures with you. And I do that because I want them to see what I'm looking at. And it's not even as a lender. Some of it's as a lender, which we'll talk about, but some of it's just as a person who's bought money pits before. Like, I know the signs. I can literally see pictures and go, been there, done that. Been there, done that. So here's the first thing. Go to whatever website you like. I like Zillow for data and pictures. Some of the stuff they're doing with their services is crazy, but for data and pictures, great. Same with realtor.com. The pictures are great. So you're gonna look at the first picture, and instead of looking at the picture going, oh, this is nice, you're gonna look at the picture, you're gonna look for problems. You are gonna put on your Nancy negative hat and you're gonna go to town. And what I'm usually looking at is, if I'm looking at the front of the house, I'm looking for leaks. Leaks are literally what drives me. It's so common. It's one of the more expensive repairs. No one's ever prepared for it. Sometimes inspectors miss it. And it's one of those things that if your house has active leaks, it makes you miserable, okay? Until you can get it fixed. That's been my personal experience with it. So I'm looking at the outside. I'm looking around the windows. I'm looking to see if there's any staining around the windows. I'm looking at the window frames. I'm looking for dry rot. I'm looking for, same thing around the garage door, around the doors, everywhere. I'm looking at the gutters. I'm looking at, sometimes you'll literally look at a house and you'll see that the gutter, instead of draining properly, is literally like draining across it, okay? And with a lot of this, you're like, well, is that a big deal? It depends, but if it's a house that I'm gonna be writing an offer on, I wanna have a list for the inspector to look at, but I also, if I see it before I go to the house, then I can take a list, right? And I would say, take a picture, write a list of things to look at. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, it was just a shadow, no big deal. But sometimes you'll be like, wow, I'm glad I looked at that on the picture, because once again, guys, when you're walking up to these houses, you're not walking up like a detective. You're not walking up like a stalker. You're just walking into the house, okay? So stucco, I'm looking for problems with the stucco. I'm looking for staining across the stucco. I'm looking for dark spots. Dark spots anywhere usually are not a good sign. Siding I'm looking for. Sometimes you can literally see in pictures that the siding is soft. That is not good. If I'm looking at a picture and I go, siding looks soft, if I go to look at that house, I'm gonna touch it. And if it's soft, I'm gonna walk away unless I have a lot of money to replace siding. Replacing siding can be expensive and you don't know what's on the other side. That's the thing. It's one of those repairs where people go, oh, well, the siding's like 20K. Great. How bad is the damage behind the siding? You don't know until you pull it off. So something I'm always looking for is I'm really paying attention to the siding. I'm looking for rippling. I'm looking for anything that looks outside of the norm in the picture, because I know that if I go there in person, and you guys will know too, if you go there in person and you know what you're looking at, you'll be able to go, oh yeah, that's a problem. That's soft, or oh, it was a shadow, right? So I'm looking at the exterior. Every single picture, I'm looking for problems. Let's say we go in the house, the first thing that I'm always looking at in the pictures is the ceilings. That's right. I am looking for any discoloration or rippling again. And the reason I'm looking for discoloration is sometimes you'll see, it will say new roof 2023. But they put a new roof on, but they never repaired any of the damage between the ceiling and the roof. So you could have mold, you could have all sorts of problems there. A new roof doesn't mean everything was repaired. It just means new roof. And people go, well, wait, when they do a new roof, don't they do all that? Not necessarily. Like, you could be talking about two separate companies, right? Like, a roofer isn't necessarily licensed to go in and do that other work. Did they call both parties? Who knows? So I'm always looking at the ceiling. I'm looking for discoloration. If you see a freshly painted white ceiling and there's like a little bit of gray in a spot, they're trying to cover something up. I actually knew a real estate agent back in the day that would do that. He would spray everything white, and a terrible person, horrible, horrible person. Karma's got him. But, you want to watch out for that stuff. Also, I'm looking for big issues. And sometimes what will happen is people will come into a house and they'll decide like, oh, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna turn this into an open floor plan. But they don't have the experience to realize that they're pulling out a load-bearing wall. So you can start to see the ceilings moving downward. You also could have a leak from above that's starting to make the ceiling bulge. A bulging ceiling is never a good sign. I'm looking at the windows. Once again, I am looking for leaks, right? And look, window leaks can be repaired, but a lot of times you've got to cut into the drywall. It is a real situation. And if you're financially prepared for it, it's great. But if you're not, it's a nightmare. And that's the thing. This is all about knowing what you're getting into and being financially prepared for it, so you don't get bankrupted or sideswiped or max out credit cards, or just that impending doom feeling of, oh God, I bought this house, it was gonna be great, and now it's just gonna bleed me dry. How am I gonna fix that? Is there gonna be, it could get bad. So really pay attention to that. Walls, I'm always looking for bulging, rippling. Sometimes it's crazy. You'll literally see mold on walls in pictures, big discoloration. If I see a ceiling or a wall and it's yellow, I'm always going to be saying, hey, when you go in there, make sure you smell, because it could be from a smoker. And, if you smoke, it's not a big deal. But if you don't, the thing about people who smoke indoors, it leaves a residue, which can be really tough to get off. Like, go into Reddit, go into any of these channels about some of these repairs. you know, there's two that make it where you're like ripping out drywall to get rid of the smell. It's cat urine and smoke, okay? So definitely things to consider. Look, I'm a little extra. I am not gonna deny it because I've spent so much by not being extra, and I don't want you guys to end up in the same circumstance. If I see a cat tree in a picture, I'm gonna be going through that house looking and smelling as closely as possible. Litter box, anything with animals, I'm gonna be paying extra attention. Birds are a big deal. You know, I was looking at pictures for a client once and I was like, dude, they let that bird fly everywhere in the house. And there's some stuff with bird feces that can be really toxic to your health if it's in the air system, which because this bird was free range and no one was cleaning up after it, like there were gonna be problems, okay? So really pay attention to the animals in the house, any potential impact they could have on the condition of the house, okay? Now, what else? So we covered, we're looking for darkness, we're looking for rippling, we're looking for, you know, lines down the ceiling. Sometimes that can just not be an issue, but other times it can be an issue of settling, which could be normal, but it could be a foundation issue as well. So that's the other thing. There's certain parts of the country where you really need to pay attention to the foundation. Texas, lots of parts of Texas, you got to pay attention to that foundation. Massachusetts, woo! Google Massachusetts foundation issues. There was a specific type of foundation used, and I think it was as recently as the 90s, where basically the foundations are falling apart. So these houses that are really not even that old are completely, pick your favorite word. I cannot think of a nice one, but you really want to make sure you're paying attention to foundation. You know, one of the tells on that is sometimes we'll look at pictures and everything's slanted. And you know, I always make the joke of, you know, maybe the lender was wearing one shoe with a heel and one shoe without, but sometimes it's literally because houses are on foundations or they're on, you know, some level of post and pier, right, that's not 100% right. And, you know, one of the old tricks that I joke about in very old videos, I haven't done one in a while, bring a marble. It sounds so crazy, doesn't it? Bring a marble. If there's wood floors and you're like, is this slanted? Put the marble down, okay? Fun story, in our New York apartment right now, we found out that the floor is 5 inches slanting because there's a support beam that needs to be replaced underneath us. If you guys have seen video on that apartment, you know it's my never-ending nightmare. I should have brought a marble, right? I should have brought a marble. So bring a marble. And here's the thing. Sometimes you can fix this stuff. Let's say it's post and pier. Okay, you know, you could, post and pier is not that crazy to replace stuff if it's not bad. But if it's the whole foundation and it's a cement foundation, that's a different story. If you're in a condo or apartment and you're gonna have to deal with support beams that are right above a neighbor's head, that's another story, right? It goes on and on and on. So really keep your eye out for that. Excuse me, I'm like so parched, excuse me. Let's have a water break together. I know the mic made that really creepy, I'm sorry. Okay, what else? So we're looking for water everywhere. We're looking for bulges, rippling, anything that draws our eye. The other thing that like can be a really good indicator of what you're walking into, in my perfect world, okay, just knowing what I know now, I want a house that was loved. I do. And here's why. You can see in the picture sometimes, like you can see that maybe it's really old. Maybe it's I mean, this actually isn't very old, but let's say it's a 1950s house. And look, 50s, 60s, 70s, I love those houses. They were built well in most parts of the country. Sign me up. And if you had an owner, maybe it was one owner or two owner, but you can see they took care of it. Maybe it still has green shag rug. I don't care. If you can see that that's the nicest looking green shag rug you've ever seen, that can tell you sometimes that you had a homeowner where if there was ever a problem, they fixed it. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, I only want a new house like within the last 10 years because I don't want any problems. I'm telling you this right now. It doesn't matter how old the house is. It matters how the people who lived there treated it. I've seen houses that are 2, 3 years old. They're trashed. You know, I was looking at one with a client where I was like, what happened in that wall? Because you could see they had painted a portion of it, but then another wasn't. And then if you go to the other side, it was a bathroom and you could see that there was like some sort of patch job going on. Well, look, they'd had some sort of leak or issue. They hadn't properly repaired it, right? And it's like, you can have a leak or an issue that's not properly repaired that can be a huge, huge issue within 6 months to a year, depending on where you live. If you live in a more humid climate, that can be a disaster in a month, right? So really how people took care of that house is often a better indicator of how much you'll spend down the line than what the age of the house is. Okay, and that's the other thing I want to bring to your attention. I'm sorry, it's a long video, guys, but it's like, I feel like this would save people from so many problems. Houses are built differently in different eras. So it's like, look, if you're looking at an 1800, 1900 house, let's say you're in Massachusetts once again, or you're in New York, we see some beautiful houses, Virginia, you know, anywhere historic, really, you see these gorgeous older houses. The things to know about those are, hey, look, okay, has the plumbing been replaced? Has the electrical been replaced? Because if it has original and it's that old, that's coming, okay? You know, what's the condition of the roof? When was it replaced? And if you're looking at older homes, that's something you need to consider because rewiring a house can be very expensive, as can new plumbing. You know, we see it in Seattle as well. So very important consideration there. And then sometimes people go, well, I just want a new house. They're lower maintenance. Read some of the reviews on Reddit. Like seriously, you know, I was actually at a baseball game recently with some clients. Lovely, so nice, cutest kids in the world. Cutest kids in the world. Leo, you're probably watching. Hey Leo, I love your family, seriously. And they were talking about a builder in their area who's putting on these roofs that are already constructed and they have friends moving in and they're already cracked. Right? These are new houses, but the product being delivered isn't gonna last. It's already not lasting and it's barely been on there. So just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. We saw so many supply shortages in 21 and 20 and 22, you know, the COVID shutdowns, that era especially, you wanna make sure you're paying attention to. So newer does not mean better built. Older does not mean better built. The key is going to be paying attention to what were the issues of the era, okay? Last thing, I know, I said that before, it was a trick. Google Earth. I'm not talking about Google Maps, I'm talking about Google Earth. Google Earth is your best friend. Zillow does not show you everything around the house. The house, when you drive there, you will not see everything around the house unless you get there in a helicopter, okay? Google Earth is your helicopter. It shows you everything around the house, you know, and I've had some clients where they were about to drive 2 hours to go see a house. Wyoming's a very big state. And I was like, hey, let's just go on Google Earth real quick. Like I had the time and I was curious. I'm like, do you like cows? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, like, do you like the scent of cows? Like, are you cool with cows? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's next door to a dairy farm. Like, here's the thing. Certain things are gonna have aromas, like a poultry farm, a dairy farm, a pig farm. All of those are gonna have odors. Whereas you can also be in areas where it's a suburban neighborhood. You look at the pictures, it's so cute. Oh my God, it's underneath a chemical plastic plant. Seriously, you know, or this looks so great. Another client recently, and I'm like, okay, let me look at the pictures because they were getting ready to write an offer. And once again, it was just a coincidence, right? And I said, let's go on Google Earth for fun. There's a train track in the backyard, right? And you know, they have a small child. You know, most people with small children want to be able to have the child outside without worrying, having a train track on the other side. There's a host of issues there, right? You've got sound, you've got, depending on how the area is, sometimes that can attract transient people. You know, there can be issues that need to be considered. It was also, you know, a couple houses from a big street, you got noise there too. So you've got a train track, you've got noise here, and there was an airport here. And I was like, how do you guys feel about noise? We don't like it. Okay, then you shouldn't write an offer on this house because this is a house that is going to be noisy. And so that's what you want to look at. You want to go on Google Earth and you want to look at it as, okay, what's around this house? You know, and what are my potential issues? I was looking at one recently in Louisiana, and it backed up to a swamp. You know, the pictures didn't show that. The pictures showed beautiful trees, you know, but it backed up to a swamp. There was no fence. And it's like, okay, so are you guys going to build a fence? Like, what's the plan? You know, small children again. Even without small children, like I would be very scared. I have a small dog, like Muppet would be, you know, crocodile, alligator bait. So there's a lot to consider. Google Earth is free. It's free. There's no reason everybody shouldn't be going on it. Also, sometimes you'll see that like maybe a neighbor's a hoarder, which, you know, some people are like, why are you judging? I'm not judging. I'm just saying, hey, look, if there's a lot of stuff in someone's backyard that's decaying, that will attract rats, okay? It's that simple. And if there's rats next door, odds are they're coming to my house and I'm gonna have to fist fight them. I don't like rats, right? So look at the details, look at everything. Because remember, the best way you can protect your wallet is by knowing what you're getting into. So have a checklist, write down all of your concerns. You may go there and be like, it's all good. Or you may go there and be like, okay, you know, let's write an offer, but have an inspector look at these. Or you may be like, oh my gosh, this place is horrific. I am so glad I did this because I love my money and I want to be happy in my house. So I know it was a longer video, but it's one of those things where it's like, it will save you money if you do it. It will make you more prepared. Like honestly, truly, it's probably one of the better things I suggest. You know, like I'm always talking about getting pre-approved, which is so important, but also really approving the house you get into is so important, because as a lender, we don't look at all of that stuff, right? As a appraiser, they don't look at all of that stuff. You know, it's up to you. It's in your hands, and expecting your real estate agent to do it isn't realistic either. So eyes wide open, be that stalker. If you have questions, comments, if this has helped you, drop it in. Thanks for watching.